Good evening, and thank you so much for joining us. My name is Imani Gordon, and I'm the Executive Director for Affinity Community Services. And Affinity is a social justice organization. We serve the entire LGBTQ population with an emphasis on Black LGBTQ women. Before we get started today, I want to say thank you so much to Anna Deshawn, the world's best board president. Thank you so much for being in here, helping us out, and for your leadership at Affinity. We appreciate you. Tonight we're going to be talking to the amazing Kayla Pulley. Kayla is a Harry Potter enthusiast and graduate of Columbia College Chicago. She's performed theater, improv, stand-up, sketch comedy, and burlesque in various theaters across the city, and is the founder and creator of the Lemonade Stand, a stand-up showcase and open mic specifically for women of color. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm so excited to have you, and I'm really excited about this conversation. So let's get started. Kayla, could you start by first introducing yourself and telling us a bit about your own professional trajectory and how you became a comedian?
Sure. So I'm originally from St. Louis, Missouri. I moved here to Chicago about 12 years ago for school. I went to Columbia College. While I was in school, I went to school for theater. And while I was in school, I had quite a few teachers who wanted me to focus on comedy. But for some reason, I just didn't listen. Just didn't really listen to them. I had aspirations of being the Black Audrey Hepburn. So I really wanted to focus on more serious, dramatic acting. But the whole reason I actually went to Columbia was because of a program they had with Second City called Comedy Studies. That program's a whole major now, which is really cool. But when I went there, you spent a semester at Second City, and you took a lot of classes there, and they kind of infused them with some theater classes too. Okay. And during that, that was the whole reason I went to Columbia. My guidance counselor in high school thought that Columbia College would be a great school for me because of that program. And it's funny, like I went there, did the program, but still wanted to be the Black Audrey Hepburn. But after college, I was being cast in a lot of shows as a lot of maids, and I was always a really good maid. Like I was a good maid. I was a sassy maid. I was a funny maid. I was a good maid, but I just wasn't quite content being a maid. Yeah. And I was just like, let me try this comedy thing again. And I took some classes at Second City, and then I joined an improv team. And before I knew it, I was like on 5 improv teams, and I was having a lot of fun with improv, and then someone suggested focusing on stand-up more. While I was in college, I started doing stand-up here and there, but just kind of if someone reached out to me like, hey, we have a stand-up spot open on this show, would you like to do it? I did it here and there like that. I wasn't really going out to open mics. But last summer, around this time, I was like, let me really focus on going to the open mics, and I started doing that more. And at the open mics here in Chicago, the ones I was going to mostly on the north side, I was like, no one looks like me. Right. So yeah, that's kind of how I got to where I am right now.
Gotcha. Thank you so much. I'm also wondering, because I think a lot of us think about like, I wonder if I could be a comedian. When did you find out you were funny?
So my whole life, people have always told me I was funny. My parents, when I was really little, they told me I was quite a clown. But like I said, I wanted to be the Black Audrey Hepburn, and I was really focused on that. I think I didn't really, and I had started doing improv and stand-up a few years ago more regularly, but I didn't really tap into it until I started working for an organization called Barrel of Monkeys, which is a really awesome non-for-profit organization. We do creative writing residencies. What students write, we perform for them to teach them that their ideas matter, and like if you have one small idea, look at this big thing it can become, and to show them that writing is a healthy, fun outlet for them. But that company is so great. I'm able to work with so many different types of artists. And I think being around so many different type of artists who kept telling me, like, you're funny. I was like, I must be funny because these people, they know entertainment and they know what's what. So I must actually be funny. So I probably didn't realize I was funny until about 2 or 3 years ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, I knew you were funny the first time I saw you. That was really fun getting to be on that showcase with you.
Yeah, it was a really great show.
It was fun. You were very funny. I didn't have to be funny, luckily. But it was really, really fun.
Yeah.
And I also loved talking to you because at that event, that's when you told me that about the lemonade stand. And, in October 2018, you created the lemonade stand, and it's a showcase specifically for women of color. And I was wondering if you could talk to us about why you think that's important.
Yes, I think it's very important I think the lemonade stand is really important right now. I think women of in color in general, we're finally like being brought to people's attention that like we're here, we have something to say, and it's different from what you all perceive about us. So I think that is one reason why it's so important. And also because, like I said, I was going to open mics and seeing no one who looked like me.
Right.
And unfortunately, that was rather discouraging. And it didn't really motivate me to focus on stand-up. I was like, I don't really want to do this. Like, I'm in the wrong place. I don't belong here. But after talking to two other friends, Jillian E. Banks and Asia Martin, who also created the lemonade stand with me, they also felt the same way, like not going to open mics because they just didn't feel like a safe, warm, welcome environment for us. So that was why we were like, hey, let's stop that problem right now and let's create a place for us. And that's kind of how the lemonade stand came into existence.
Awesome. Thank you so much, and I'm really a big fan of this. All of my favorite comedians are women of color, so
right, yeah.
I love thinking that you are making it easier.
Trying.
I'm wondering, do you get any pushback from people for creating a space that's designed to highlight the experiences of women of color?
No, I don't, and I better not. You've
Perfect.
been warned.
Okay, cool. Done.
I'm really happy. Like, honestly,
Good.
that was something that I unfortunately was a little worried about. Because being a woman of color, like, we have to worry about everything, you know?
Of course, yep.
And no, people have been extremely supportive.
Wonderful. I'm really glad to hear that.
Yeah.
So, who's invited to participate in the lemonade stand? This includes who you want on the mic and who you want in the audience.
Yes, that's a really great question, and that's something I get a lot. The mic is open to everyone, it is, but preference is given to women of color because this is their time, this is their space. So they get preference over other people at the mic, women of color, yes, or people who identify as women of color, they get preference. Who's invited to participate in the audience? Anyone. I actually want everybody to come because even if you don't identify as a woman of color, I think you can learn so much from this experience, from the artists you'll see perform. So I want everybody to come.
Awesome. Good. So everyone come out.
Everybody.
Have you seen the lemonade stand do anything to actually, like, tangibly eliminate barriers for folks or change someone's life for the better?
I don't know about changing anyone's life. I hope it changes someone's life one day. If it's changed someone's life, that's awesome. But much to my surprise, like, I get a lot of messages on Facebook and emails from women I've never met who are saying, like, thank you for creating this. I would love to check it out. And that makes me feel like we're breaking down some barriers, letting these people know that there is a place they can go. And the fact that the people feel comfortable reaching out to me makes me so happy because really it is why we're all here. Like the four of us involved in this, like we want to help each other. So that's really awesome. And I do feel like we're slowly like chipping away at those barriers.
Good. Your modesty is just lovely too. It kills me. I mean, you spent all this time in the beginning talking about how hard it was to see yourself as a comedian, even though you've always been funny, and that would actually be something that seems like it would be fairly obvious for folks. And now you're making it easier for people to be able to see themselves like that.
Right, yeah.
And maybe you don't hear from everyone, but it's work like that really does change people's lives. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming.
Oh my goodness. I mean, it's literally entertaining us. So thank you.
We deserve it.
So I love comedy. When I first got here, all of the date nights my wife and I would go on, they were always centered around stand-up in particular. We love stand-up. And I've been to shows that are educational and funny, and those are the things that I love about stand-up. But I've also been to stand-up that's just offensive, incredibly offensive. Incredibly offensive. And I'm wondering, how do you draw the line between what is funny and what is actually inappropriate?
That's a good question to ask, because I think it's something that a lot of comedians struggle with. Even people who have like a sweet, pleasant demeanor, they might not always realize that something that they've written is offensive. I think it's hard because in comedy you're taught to push the envelope. They teach us to see like how far can you go, how much can you get away with. With that being said, I don't think you have to be sexist, racist, homophobic, or anything like that to push that envelope. I think a lot of times with satire, because that's really big here in Chicago, people being satirical, satire is how I think a lot of people disguise like being inappropriate and offensive sometimes. Personally, I think if you have a really strong point of view with what you're saying with what your joke is, hopefully, if you have a point of view and it's not offensive, then that joke shouldn't be offending anyone. I think, to me, comedy is a lot of my comedy comes from observations that I make about all of us as humans. So I feel like if maybe we tried to be a little bit deeper, like with our comedy, and like think more, and if we tried to be a bit more enlightened, we wouldn't have as much offensive or inappropriate comedy. I think it's easy. I think that's one reason why you unfortunately see a lot of that, because some people are lazy and they don't want to put in the work. So I think actually do your work. And then if you make a joke where you are commenting on something about a culture or a race that's different than yours, do the research, Right. And I don't mean like ask your one black friend if it's okay to make that joke. I mean actually do the research and spend the time to figure out like, oh, is this offensive to someone else? So, yeah, I think you have to, I don't know if there is a line to draw. I think you just have to just be a decent person and do your research and have a strong point of view that's not sexist, racist, or homophobic. Yeah.
Yeah. That actually makes me think of something. I don't know, were you familiar, I think it was a couple weeks ago, I don't watch too much SNL these days, but that there was a joke by I think it was Leslie Jones. She is one of very few black women on SNL, and she had a part where she was playing I think Meghan Markle's like a cousin or something. And
yes, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah. Were you offended by that?
I was. So was I. Yeah. So as I understood the joke, as I understood it, they were saying that there was this cousin, and they had to teach her how to basically behave appropriately. And this was someone that was black, Meghan Markle is mixed race. And I thought it was so offensive for a couple of reasons. The one is that it's just very obviously racist, like very obviously racist. But secondly, and more importantly, is that when we have seen what's happened with that family in particular, like it's certainly uncomfortable. And also, her mother, her black mother, has been just perfect. Just actually perfect and supportive and kind, and all the places that we've seen someone act in a way that would warrant taking a class has certainly been from another side of her family, you know? And if there was going to be a race element, there's actually literally, a history there that they could choose from, and opting to say that it would be from the black side of her family that would need this training, it's racist, but it's also not even accurate. Right.
And I actually saw that sketch, and I watch SNL. It's something that sometimes if they really have my attention, I'll sit down and pay attention, but a lot of times it's something I'm kind of listening to while I'm doing something else. And I was like kind of watching it out of the side of my eye, and in that sketch, it's really upsetting. I was very disappointed because there's it's like she's in an etiquette class, and this I forget who it was, I think it was Emma Thompson was the guest that night, and Emma Thompson is the etiquette coach, and she's like physically like hitting her, and it was just yeah, I don't know if like I'm sure that it was staged correctly, so she wasn't actually being hit, but it was unfortunately like very like offensive, and I was thinking that too. I was like, so why it was like her cousin, like and I was just like, this is so upsetting. And it was one of those things that I watched and I said, I wonder who wrote this too, because the thing is, if it was written by some of the black writers, maybe there's reasoning why they wrote it that way, you know, like maybe there's a joke that we're not quite getting that they're trying to make. I mean that's me trying to be polite
certainly about it. But I mean, and certainly there's a rule for, you know, like the joke that's, you know, 2% of the population gets, but there's actually a very obvious joke there when, I mean, it's, you know, sad the way that some of this happened, but there's, I mean, there's certainly a joke, too, the way that her father and her sister have behaved during this entire thing. There's a joke there, you know, and I was really discouraged by that as well.
Yeah, I was. It was one of those things that really made me cringe, because it was like, there was a lot. It's one thing to make that joke. If you're going to make that joke, you better do it very well, SNL. Like, and it's just like, and you all have like some, like, come on, like, you all know better. Your staff knows better. But it was just like also like seeing a black woman like physically like abused, like was just so upsetting. I was like, who okayed this?
Right. Yeah. So, you know, I mean, I guess everyone or a lot of people get it wrong sometimes. And so what do you think comedians should do when they get it wrong, you know, when they're on that side of offensive, you know, and they didn't mean to be, and they find themselves over there having offended a community? What do you think should happen?
I think first they need to acknowledge what they've done and apologize. I think unfortunately when a lot of comedians, people in general, not even just comedians, when people get called out on doing something wrong, they need to explain, or you know, like, I was trying to do this, and actually what I meant was that. Just own up and admit you made a mistake, because we're all humans. We are all going to make mistakes. Just admit that you've made a mistake and try to do better, you know? And it's not going to be something you can fix overnight either at all. It's something that's going to take time, and just try to, like, just apologize and do better. I guess is what I can say.
That's it. Apologize and do better. I mean that's I agree. So I know this is kind of cheating, asking a comedian what their most embarrassing thing is that's happened on stage, but I'm going to ask you. Yeah. What is the most embarrassing thing that's ever happened to you on stage?
You know, it's really funny. It's something that happened when I was very small, but I remember being so embarrassed. Funny story, I realized very young I wanted to perform. And when I told my parents that, they put me in dance and piano. And my first ever dance recital, it was... First of all, like, looking at, like, a picture of me when I did the costume we wore, I feel like, why was, like, a baby wearing, like, a little leotard with, like all these feathers? So I'm like, this was a little too grown. But whatever. There was something like this feather headpiece that was bobby pinned in my head, and I probably complained about it being too tight, and my mother probably loosened it. And while we were on stage, it fell off, and I was so embarrassed. Aww. So embarrassed. And I remember, like, there was a part of the dance where we all held hands, and I was holding it in my hand, and, like, some of the kids were like, no, like, I don't want to hold your hand because of that. And that's probably the most embarrassed I've been on stage.
Oh, I'm so sorry. That's so sad.
It's okay, I got out the way young. Like, that's why I have no shame now.
So you're golden.
Yeah.
So, you know, I also wanted to ask you, who is your favorite comedian?
It changes. Yeah. It changes a lot. Because it depends on, like, what Netflix special I've seen or who I saw live. Right now, probably... My favorite comedian right now is probably Nicole Byer. Do you know her?
Wait a minute. She just did a Netflix special.
Did she?
Did she? Wait.
She's the host of Nailed It.
No. I'm thinking someone else. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I do know who she is now.
Yeah, she's great. She's really fantastic, and I love her because she's a beautiful black woman who's plus sized, and who talks about that too. for me, sometimes I have that's something I'm really awkward about talking about, like my size and my jokes. I don't like to. And so to see her do it in a positive way, because she's basically like, she has a podcast called Why Won't You Date Me? And she interviews people asking them why won't they date her.
Oh my.
And she tells them, like, like, I'm a beautiful woman with all of this to offer. How could you not date me? It's really great. And she's very inspiring and very powerful. Like, yeah, she's someone who it really inspires me. Like, and she's great. Everyone check her out. She's coming here July 15th to Talia Hall. Yeah, everybody should go. Support Black women. Support Nicole Byer.
I love it. I love it. It looks like we have a caller, too.
Yeah. Hey, how you doing? My name is Nelson. It's been a while since I've called in and talked to you all, but it's a little bit different conversation tonight, so I said let me chime in here. But what I wanted to share with you was in the early 1990s when AIDS was, I don't know if I want to say it at its peak, but when it was really bad, all jokes aside, downtown Chicago was the place to go. And one of the issues that I have had with black comedians, being a black gay male, it always seems that some part in their show, they seem like to me that they dedicated like 5 minutes to gay jokes. So this particular night I went, George Wilburn was the host, and I came away with an idea. I said, call them and ask them will they do an AIDS fundraiser. I wrote them. I didn't call them. I wrote them. I believe that's what I did. And I said, if anything, I said, you should invite some gay comics. I said the worst that could happen is more people will be informed about AIDS. I said some straight comics will get some new material. And I said, and you get to showcase some gay comics. They actually did it. It was pretty good. And as you all have been talking about the Saturday Night Live skit, well, you all would have really been offended with that, but I'm glad that they did. And like I said, I asked them to do it as an AIDS fundraiser, and they did do it. And I just wanted to share that. I've always loved your show. One day I'm going to get down there.
Okay.
That's a promise because I like to write. And this young lady who you have on the show with you tonight, be sure to have her mention again the lemonade thing. I want to watch that. I want to watch that for myself. I actually got a chance to meet my favorite author, which is Walter Mosley. I cannot believe that I cried when I met him. But as I see you and I see the spark that you have in your eye, whatever it is that you're trying to do, young lady, stay with it.
Thank you.
My pen name is Tracy E. Warren, and you're going to hear from me.
I can't wait.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a lot of what we're talking about, making sure that people are able to see representation, and not be offended. So thank you so much, caller. Really appreciate it. So we're coming up on the end of our time, and I'm wondering, do you have any shows coming up, or are you working on any projects?
Yes, tomorrow is actually the last Saturday of the month, so that means it's the Lemonade Stand Day. Yay. The Lemonade Stand will be at the Playground Theater. That's on Belmont and Halstead tomorrow night at 7 p.m. It's BYOB and pay what you can.
Oh, nice. Wonderful. Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, it has been an absolute pleasure. Thanks so much for sharing your expertise. I'm excited to go. I'm actually going to try to make it out to Lemonade Stand.
Great.
I've been looking forward to it.
Can't wait.
So thank you so much for joining us. It's a pleasure having you on. Remember, we are on the fourth Friday of the month, so come in and we talk about lots of things in particular intersections of identity, dealing with race, sex, gender, sexual orientation. We'd love to have you. So, Anna, thank you so much for phones. Thank you so much, caller, for reminding us to plug the Lemonade Stand again.
Yes. Tomorrow at 7.
Tomorrow at 7. And if you want to find more about Kayla or her work, you can find her on Instagram at It's underscore Ratchelette.
Ratchelette. It's DA underscore Ratchelette. RACHELORETTE.
Love it. And it's that on Instagram and also on Twitter.
Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us. If you want to hear more about us, you can find us at affinity95.org. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a wonderful Friday and good night.